First of all, I would like to know, why did you found Eyeota, and what's your story as a founder?
The story behind founding for me was one that was a really natural progression. I had spent many, many years working for different startups across my career. And when the opportunity came to actually found a company myself, I felt like I had a lot of the experience and tools and the basics that I needed. It was just taking that final step and taking that leap. And it's one I'm really happy I made. It's been 10 years now, which is hard to believe. And when we founded the company, I founded with a few ex-colleagues of mine, and we were all focused on international markets outside of the US in ad tech. And we were looking at the space 10 years ago, and we saw that data was going to play a huge part in the marketing and advertising strategies of brands and marketers. And it was very clear that outside of the States, there were no solutions. So what we decided to do at that time was create audience technology and data solutions for basically first everywhere outside of the States, which really locked us up as the go-to company for data anywhere outside of America. And then about 5 years ago, we ended up moving our business into America because of the strong partnerships and quality data products we had allowed us to enter the market pretty swiftly then. So at this point in time now, it's a global company that global marketers and brands can use for in any country across the world. In terms of my background, where I came from, I spent my entire career in ad tech, and really I can say from the mailroom up, as they say. I started my career as the receptionist. I was temping as the receptionist for one of the first online ad networks. It was a company called Flycast, and that's where the bug got me, and I got so excited about ad tech and all the opportunities presented. It's obviously an industry that has presented me with a lot of opportunity and allowed me to grow and succeed across the last over 20 years now.
And so, you've been an entrepreneur for years and years now. So what was your biggest learning? What would you say?
The biggest learning as an entrepreneur is just to not give up. When things get hard, you just put your head down and you keep going and you keep solving the problems one by one. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. So you just have to keep adapting and you have to keep moving. The other one I would say is choosing the people that you keep by your side and the people that you work with. It is incredibly personal and emotional journey. At least it was for me, founding a company and bringing it to the point where it was today. It's not only about your business partners, about everyone around you, and you have to make sure that you have a group of people, both your colleagues and your family around you, that support you through that process, because it can be grueling.
So in terms of Eyeota, can you quickly explain to those that don't know the company what you do? What is your USP?
Yes, so Eyeota is an audience technology company and provider of data that helps global brands and marketers reach relevant audiences and more effectively use their marketing dollars. So we do that in a host of different products, from audience targeting segments for programmatic advertising, to licensing data, to enhance first-party data and learn more about existing customers, to onboarding offline data sets that belong to brands to be able to activate those in a digital environment. But that all wraps up under the umbrella, and everything we do is about data.
And so if you go into an enterprise, what do you see normally? How do they allocate ad spend?
So it depends on if you're going into the brand direct or into the agency. And a lot of the people that we talk to, one of the key things is a place that we fill that no one else does is this global nature of our business and being able to provide relevant and high quality data for any country where they operate. So when we position the company and talk to our clients, if you're talking to a brand directly, it's about that umbrella of data solutions that they can use to more effectively target prospects and find out more about their existing customers. So for them, it's about being able to license our data to enhance their first-party data and overlap and understand more about what makes their most important customers tick. So they can use that knowledge. Again, it all comes back into how can I more effectively use my marketing dollars? And if the more they know about their most valuable customers or different customer segments, the easier and more effective it is for them to then use that same information and that same targeting to go out and acquire more of those types of clients. People also use the data for things like site personalization. So a lot of sites, if you go to the site for the first time or you land on their site, they don't know too much about you. So you can imagine if an insurer knows that you are either a parent or a single, or you own a car or don't own a car. Those are all really important attributes of a user that can help them talk to you more personally and lead you to the products that you need more quickly. And then we also work closely with agencies, obviously, because a lot of the media planning that uses audience data for targeting happens at the agency level. So there we're also constantly educating about what type of data there is, what type of data you use for different strategies, and help them understand the data space at a global level.
So what would you say in terms of the industries? What are the industries that really should use your product, or are also the ones that spend most budget, obviously, then?
Yeah. So the nice thing about the business is it has a very broad base of verticals, particularly that use the data for audience targeting. So you have a lot of CPG brands using the data for targeting. We have a lot of, and particularly with COVID, obviously that dynamic changed quite a bit. You have a lot of insurance, health, a lot of retail. We have very strong, auto used to be a very strong sector. We do see it coming back now. So it's interesting that that dynamic of who's spending the most money on data has been changing and is continuing to evolve as the fallout of Corona comes through. And then if you look at the onboarding products, that is really most relevant for companies that have offline data assets globally that they can't activate through a first-party data match, like through an email address. So there are solutions in the States for onboarding against an email address, but there are no global, we are really the only global solution for onboarding where you can onboard in a privacy compliant and globally consistent manner for any of these markets. So just as an example, if you look at someone like, an auto brand, they have a lot of data about car ownership and who's buying what types of cars in what areas, in what geographic areas, but they have very little data on an actual email address of their customers or anything else. So we have an onboarding product that allows them to activate all these offline data assets and use them for better prospecting and reaching new customers.
So what would you say are also the biggest challenges when it comes to knowing your customers as an enterprise?
I think what's very interesting is that it's changing rapidly right now. Again, because of the market dynamics, there are so many new digital clients coming on board for brands that I think the focus on where they're spending a lot of their time and money will shift much more into how do I acquire more and better new customers faster. Because I think a lot of the focus to date has been on how do I speak to my existing customers, how do I get more money involved, to date I think it's been a lot about how do I speak to my existing client base, and now it very much becomes how do I grab all of these new customers that are going online effectively and efficiently.
And so if I'm an enterprise that would like to work with Eyeota, what are the requirements that you need? So do I need specific infrastructure to be set up, or yeah?
No, there's no specific infrastructure that you need to work with us. Depending on what types of products you're looking to use, we activate that data at different endpoints. So you have to imagine we have this large data asset that's not only Eyeota data, but also data that we activate for companies like GfK and Experian and MasterCard. And so what happens is we transport that data, depending on what type of data they need to use, to the platforms where they're executing their advertising and marketing campaigns. So just a very practical example, that means if they want to use our data for targeting and programmatic advertising, we make sure they have that data available in their DSP, as in their demand side platform, whether that's the Trade Desk or whether that's Amobi, and that data will be made available to them there. Or for example, if they want to use the data for enhancing their first party data and overlapping that or creating lookalike audiences, then we make sure that data is available to them, let's say in Adobe or any other DMP or a CDP that they use.
Okay, you mentioned lookalike audiences. I mean, I have the opportunity to do the same on Facebook. So why would I go to Eyeota versus using the competitors, obviously Facebook, Instagram, Google, etc.?
Obviously, the walled gardens dominate a lot of ad spend, and they dominate a lot of airtime with all of us as users. But if you're a marketer, then if you look at what you want out of the intelligence and insights you have from what you're doing with your marketing dollars, that's where this walled garden and that black hole becomes very apparent. So if you're controlling all of that activity through Facebook and all of the data strategies and lookalike models out inside of Facebook, you walk away with next to no intelligence off the back of that. And it also is limited to speaking to those users in that environment. So if you look at where I spend the most of my time, obviously this is different from generation to generation, but yes, obviously I spend a lot of time there, but I spend just as much time, if not more, on a lot of other channels. So if you limit building lookalike audiences and data strategies to only within the walled gardens, it really limits the insights that you have and the different touch points that you have with those users along the way. I think the other thing to keep in mind about social media is also, again, I look at myself as an example, the persona you are in a social network is not always the true persona that you are in real life. Obviously, they have data that is extremely valuable, things like they have a very good handle on your gender and your age, obviously. But if you look at the interests and the insights that they grab from that, I do not, as the person I am in Facebook is really not the person I am in my everyday life. So I think there is also a lot of value of taking those data insights that are outside of the walled gardens and also moving them in. And that's something that we actually just launched a couple months ago, the first program with Amobi on that, to enable our external data to be used for targeting activation in all of the social channels. So yeah, I mean, the walled gardens are, you can't get around them, but they definitely don't have all the answers.
Speaking of the data, so where do you actually get your data from?
The data comes from a host of different sources. So what we've always tried to do with our products and platforms is make sure that it's as flexible as possible and as broad as possible in the type of data we provide. So on the one hand, we have local people in each market doing data, doing data recruitment for all sorts of online data providers. So those might be things like dating websites or price comparison engines or general content sites, anything that gives us a picture of who you are online, what your persona looks like, what type of activities, what types of interests you have, what you're in market to buy, what are you researching. So there's the one hand, they're all online and mobile data points that we pull in on an anonymized basis and aggregated into standardized taxonomy. Those cover all types of sociodemographic, interest, intent, and B2B attributes. And then we also do equally as much work with large data companies and market research companies, enabling them to activate their data across all these channels. So we do a lot of work onboarding data for companies like Experian and GfK and MasterCard, and working with market research companies like Kantar and YouGov to be able to take those insights, which are also have a different, they have a different collection methodology, and they're also brands that they're companies that these brands know and use in other marketing channels. And we've been able to activate those types of data sets as well for all of the targeting and marketing platforms that we operate with.
So there's been a lot of talk about third-party data, obviously. So what is your kind of standpoint on that? Is there any final conclusion on how we will deal with third-party data in the future?
I think there's a distinction between the third-party data and the third-party cookie. I think there is a very big conversation right now around what does identification and that user ID that people use for targeting look like in the future. We've operated in the past over the years primarily on a cookie or mobile ad ID. Now that is changing. A lot of people want to move towards hashed email addresses, which is a more consistent identifier. But to be honest with you, I don't think we've seen the end of this yet. And the stance that we've always taken at Eyeota is making the platform as flexible as possible to adapt to wherever the market goes. So we just did updates to our platform in the spring, for example, that enable us, we have an internal cross-device ID system that allows us to append whatever identifier we or our clients need to use to one centralized Eyeota ID. So we have the ability to move seamlessly in between a third-party cookie ID, a hashed email identifier, a mobile ad ID, or now also if we're looking at if there's any sort of cohort IDs. So we've built ourselves to be as agnostic as possible in this world of identification and third-party cookies. Because if you ask me, hashed email addresses also aren't the long-term solution. Because if you look at privacy regulation, if you look at the true scale of how many of those hashed emails you can get and activate, it's not going to be, I don't think the market has really found the solution yet, and it's going to take some time because it's not a solution that one company can come up with, because whatever is decided, this is an industry-wide solution because we all have to communicate with each other. So we work on the one hand with our own cross-device graph. We also work with external providers that like TapAd and ID5 to look at how we match those IDs across channels. So it's very much a work in progress. And if you ask about the death of the third-party cookie, we very much have also built the platform so that it lives beyond whatever may come of the third-party cookie. There are some that argue already they won't really turn it off, and if they do, it won't be in the next year as anticipated. So we'll see. I mean, that's a big thing. We don't know yet, so we stay as flexible and as agnostic as possible.
So if I'm an enterprise that would like to work with you, what would be the process? So how do I approach you? How do I set this up?
So there's plenty of avenues to reach us. If you go to our website at Eyeota.com, there are contact forms there. You can reach out to different people on LinkedIn. I'm very approachable. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can put you in touch with the right people. And we also have, if people are really just interested in learning more about the particular data that we have relevant to a certain proposal that they have for a client, we have something called the data desk, where they can always write in there or fill out a form online to get an idea of what type of data we have that is relevant for them. So there's a lot of different avenues.
So Kristina, what's your long-term vision for Eyeota, and what are the next milestones that you want to achieve?
It's a good question. The interesting thing is that the vision really hasn't changed that much. It has expanded in its scope. But it's really exciting because we're getting closer and closer every day to reaching really big milestones around that. And that is, we want to be the global provider of very high quality, privacy compliant data solutions for global brands. And we want to be able to offer them these solutions in any environment that they need to activate data so that they can make smarter decisions. And the big milestones that we have coming up, which are really focused around a lot of the dynamics of where we see digital spend and communication with customers going, is this year we have a very large focus on making sure that our data is omni-channel. So really ensuring that it's not only in programmatic, not only in display and video, not only in mobile, but also across any sort of customer data platform, any sort of other identifier, whether that's on a hashed email address or some group ID. So really making sure that this data moves seamlessly and they can use the same common currency to make decisions about all of their marketing and advertising strategies. So that's the one big goal. And the other goal is taking very big steps, bringing our onboarding product to brands direct. It has been a product that we've been working on with global data companies over the last 6 to 7 years. So with companies like Equifax, like Experian, like GfK, like MasterCard, where we can onboard data in 17, 15, 12 markets for these global brands. And it's one of the things that excites me most about bringing this product now to brands direct, so we can provide them with the same global solutions.